What if Wo-Chien was in Gen 1 OU? What do you want me to say about this thing? Like, just look at its moveset. It is awful. And this is being generous because I gave it its signature move, Ruination. Could you imagine how bad this thing would be without it? And it's a shame too because its typing absolutely could work. And its stats are just good. In fact, if it weren't for that grass typing, I say its stats are great. And even with the grass typing, this is probably the best you can possibly get. You have base 100 defense, so not only is that pretty tanky for the time, but with the context of that very, very valuable ground resistance, it's just great. And 135 special defense. It's good on its own. In some ways, it's kind of irrelevant, because you have the dark typing, meaning you're immune to psychic moves. But at the same time, that in of itself is a huge, huge advantage. But also, you're tanking, like, electric and water moves great. Like, they just flat out can't hurt you at all, which is a really, really good trait. And while that ice weakness is really bad, at least you have a huge special defense stat to maybe tank it. And even that speed, 70 speed means you tie with Cloyster, which for the most part is irrelevant. But the fact that you outspeed that means by default you're also outspeeding Exeggutor, Chansey, and most importantly, I'd say Rhydon. So it's a shame. Like, this thing just doesn't learn Razor Leaf. The other moves you can use for it would be, like, as you can see here, Body Slam is its only real attacking move. Screens could be good, especially Light Screen, but you just don't have the move pool for it. Because, like, obviously, Ruination is a must-have. It's basically just Super Fang, which is very useful in Gen 1. But unlike Raticate, you actually have real stats. Stun Spore, for the same, is also just mandatory. Because you really want to be able to paralyze things. Speed control is nice. Paralysis is nice. Not to mention, it just allows you to, you know, get free turns, which is just very useful for Ruination. Even if you only get one Ruination, you paralyze them, leave them at half HP. That's very easy for one of your other Pokemon to take advantage of. Rest is, I'd say, also mandatory, because you want to just be able to recover some of your HP because of how bulky you are. And if you are able to, like, paralyze a lot of things and, like, use Ruination a lot, could be nice. And that's the reason why I have Hyper Beam for the last move and not Body Slam. Because obviously there's a huge drawback of Hyper Beam, being if you don't KO, you are forced to recharge. And with 85 attack, you're not guaranteed to get the kills off. But let's be real. In a scenario where Wo-Chien is popping off, if that's even possible, you're paralyzing something and going for a lot of Ruinations. So you're getting it pretty low already. So Hyper Beam, for the extra damage, could allow you to kill things at 25% or lower, which could not be said for Body Slam. Or for Body Slam, you'd probably need another, if I had to guess, another, like, 2 or 3 Ruinations before you can KO things. Especially things like Rhydon. And believe it or not, there are some good matchups for Wo-Chien. But they're also very ironic, because it's like, mostly the things that Wo-Chien does great against are the same things that struggles to fight. So it's weird. You really do wish this thing had Razor Leaf. And like, let's remove Leech Seed here, so you can just book through all the moves. You'll see a lot of moves that just do not exist in Gen 1. Which is a shame, because with 70 speed, you are fast enough for a guaranteed crit. And while it doesn't fix all of your problems, in fact, you still have the major ice and flying weaknesses you would have to deal with. At least with Razor Leaf, you would have a consistent way to hit things, which could be nice for, you know, like Gengar, could actually be able to hit Gengar even if it's resisted, being able to just OHKO Rhydon. These are a lot of good traits that you just can't take advantage of because of your abysmal move pool. That's a shame, but maybe it won't be as bad in the replays. Only one way to find out. Starting off with the boy himself, we got Tauros. And I was wondering if maybe Body Slam would hit more because of your high special defense. But no, Blizzard hits harder than Body Slam. So, yeah, like, granted, in this replay, Wo-Chien did better than usual. Maybe I played it with a bias, or maybe I was greedy, going for rest, hoping Tauros would get another paralysis. But, like, no, it didn't work. But it doesn't matter anyways, because the vast majority of these are going to be Tauros really damaging Wo-Chien before it can really do anything. And Stun Spore isn't even that accurate of a move. So, even if you want to stay in and go for paralysis, you're not even guaranteed to always hit it. So that's kind of embarrassing. But I guess, like, to give credit where credit is due, I'm not entirely sure Tauros stays in and risk fighting Wo-Chien. Wo-Chien, at the very least, can survive 2 attacks. And maybe it can survive a crit or 2. Or, no, not a crit or 2, like, if it's like Body Slam or Blizzard, you can survive with 1, I think. So, yeah, I don't think Tauros really risk the 1v1. So, when I go back to the tier list, I might just put Tauros and could go either way. Solely because paralyzing Tauros and maybe even getting a Ruination off, that could be a big deal. Same cannot be said for Snorlax. The set does not matter. Amnesia is probably using Ice Beam, so it just murders Wo-Chien. All out attacking sets are using Self-Destruct, so Wo-Chien can even, like, hope to stall with Ruination, maybe go for Hyper Beam. Or the Snorlax just has Rest. And if it has Rest, what the heck is Wo-Chien doing? Nothing. It's just doing nothing. So no matter what, you're just losing to Snorlax. And Chansey is not much better. I was a little optimistic at first, because you are faster. So if you do paralyze Chansey, you might be able to get lucky with a Ruination or 2 going into a Hyper Beam. But the main issue is, as you could probably guess, Chansey having more reliable recovery. And with both of them having access to paralysis, Chansey is more often than not gonna win the war of attrition. So yeah, that's very unfortunate. Hyper Beam doesn't even do 40%. Now that's sad. Really sad, but are you surprised? Like, I remember when I did Porygon Z, even with normal stab, I always was surprised it wasn't doing more damage to Chansey. Now, I imagine Wo-Chien having to use Hyper Beam as well, but it doesn't even get stabbed. Obviously, it's a recipe for disaster. And Zam here, I thought this was going to be one of the better matchups for Wo-Chien, and it technically is, but oh my gosh, it is. It does not go well for Wo-Chien if they have recovery as well as paralysis. Because it is very, very likely that they'll be the ones to win the war of attrition. Even Seismic Toss, as you can see, it's doing 27%, which is honestly more than I would have expected. I just thought 25, but that's just a little bit worse, don't you think? So this is just, it's just a matter of paralysis. If, like, which one gets unlucky first. In fact, this replay ends up being pretty long, so let's just put this to hyper fast for a bit. While this is going on, I'm just going to say, you should definitely join a Discord server. I definitely appreciate it. You're more likely to have your suggestions be taken seriously there, because if I see people start talking about it, that'll probably get me more interested. I also want to say that things are going to be differently now, and I'm going to try to have more variety with my content. So expect to see more tier list videos, as well as podcasty type videos. And videos on TCG Pocket, especially this week. This week, I'm probably going to make a few videos on Pokemon TCG Pocket. It's a fun game, if you haven't played it yourself. But now let's get back to the replay, where as you can see, Wo-Chien tried to go for Hyper Beam, only did 44%, so Zam was able to heal again. It's just not going well, but Wo-Chien does eventually manage to win, after Alakazam just is fully paralyzed. But even then, look here. Only 6 rests left. So, like, I guess it managed to beat Alakazam. I guess it managed to wall it. But it did drain a lot of Wo-Chien's resources, so I guess you can call it a good match because Zam is a big threat, and obviously Wo-Chien. Like, it's a much better trade, sacrificing Wo-Chien to beat Zam. And in a real scenario, when Wo-Chien comes out, they're probably switching, which means you're probably getting a free Stun Spore Ruination off, which obviously can only be good. Now, you know how I just said things could be good? Yeah, that's the opposite here. Even if Wo-Chien could afford to go for Light Screen, Cloyster is just probably going to win anyways. And even then, you just can't really use Light Screen. I'm pretty sure that last replay I just did with Zam probably shows you why each of the 4 moves it has are mandatory. You can't afford to get rid of them, which, yikes. That's all I can really say. Now, it does do better against Exeggutor minus Zam, because not only is Stun Spore not guaranteed on Exeggutor, way more importantly, it does not have access to Recover. And you can even survive an Explosion. But that part doesn't matter, because if Eggy is forced to boom on Wo-Chien, I would say that's an excellent trade that you do not care about in the slightest. Exeggutor being KO'd is more than worth it. Now, Gengar is weird, because for all intents and purposes, you do kind of wall Gengar. Because Psychic you're immune to, you resist Thunderbolt, which means Gengar has to go for Nightshade exactly. But that gives Wo-Chien chances to go for Stun Spore. If you go for Stun Spore, then immediately half Gengar's HP. That's a pretty useless Gengar. But at the same time, Nightshade does do good damage to Wo-Chien, and Gengar does go for Boom. But still, it's weird. Despite only having normal moves to attack Gengar with, I really do think this would be a could go either way. So, good job, Wo-Chien. You surpassed my expectations. Even if your fight was rather pathetic. Now we have Jolteon. And I want you guys to guess. What do you think is the most consistent damage? Critting with Thunderbolt? Double Kick? Or is it Pin Missile? Yeah, like even Double Kick, as you see, only does like 20% there. So, not really that good. Meanwhile, a critical Pin Missile with only hitting thrice does 60. So yeah, I don't think anyone's too surprised that the quad effective Pin Missile is probably the best that you can do. And even Double Kick. So like Double Kick I think would do around 40 something if it got a crit, which, yeah, that's just not the best. So I guess Pin Missile is your best option. But at the same time, is Wo-Chien really a big enough threat to where you want to run Pin Missile? I'm pretty sure that's only on, like, lead sets. I don't know. Like, I'll admit, I've become more... I think I might have been too harsh on Pin Missile in the past. I've been more forgiving, which is more than I can say for Jynx attacking Wo-Chien. Wo-Chien might have the Dark typing. Jynx does not care. Wizard absolutely demolishes. Now, here is my favorite of all of them. Because this one I think is interesting. For one, Wo-Chien having Stun Spore means it's one of the few things that can directly paralyze Rhydon, which in of itself is interesting. But Rhydon can't really hurt Wo-Chien. Rock Slide needs a crit to do good damage, but this is exactly why we have Rest. Wo-Chien can go for those Ruinations, heal off, and just wait for the paralysis to give it a free chance to attack. So, overall, it's not a bad... It's just not bad. You only have Hyper Beam, but, again, like, you can just keep going for Ruination until you know for a fact Hyper Beam is a guaranteed KO. And I still think you'd rather Hyper Beam rather than Body Slam. Because look at that, Hyper Beam there, that only did, like, 10%. Could you imagine how terrible Body Slam's damage would be? It's a lot easier just going for Rest and just waiting for a free opportunity. Of course, this wouldn't actually be how this would go down. They're not going to keep their healthy Rhydon just sitting there against a Wo-Chien. But at the same time, if we were to put this in actual practice, they have Rhydon, you take out Wo-Chien. It doesn't matter what they send in. You could just go for Ruination and go for a free attack, dealing half damage to whatever is sent out. That honestly doesn't sound like too bad of an idea. And while it's weird, I actually do think Wo-Chien has some OU viability. Not enough to be on the tier list, not even at like E tier, but since it does do so well against Gengar, Rhydon, and sort of Zam and Exeggutor, you are able to switch in Pokemon and go for Paralysis or just Ruination. So because of that, I wouldn't be surprised if Wo-Chien actually sees more play than its main rival, Raticate. Which I know might be weird, because Raticate actually has stab, so hits harder. But since Wo-Chien has better stats, and more importantly, a better typing, if you want to go for just Super Fang, I think Wo-Chien is the better option here. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. But we're not done with Rhydon, because that was Rock Slide, but I was curious to see if Leer does better. And technically it does. Probably doesn't surprise you too much. One Body Slam in Leer isn't really that impressive. Need at least 2 to do some, like, decent damage to Wo-Chien. But once you do that, yeah, it's not that bad. Although, in order to go for a Leer, they are going for multiple Ruinations on you. And if that's happening, then yeah, you're not gonna do well. The same thing basically applies. Wo-Chien can keep going for rest until you can't move with Paralysis, which means they can just stall until they get an opening to kill you with Hyper Beam. And funny enough, that crit actually really held Rhydon back. So overall, it's just a great matchup, and it's the most consistent great matchup. But even then, it can't exactly kill Rhydon immediately. But since Wo-Chien is a snail, like, they're not exactly known for being fast, so I guess that checks out. Even if with 70 speed you are kinda decent, which is ironic. What's not ironic, though, is a big stalling Pokemon like Wo-Chien, obviously it's not doing anything to Slowbro. You have a huge special defense stat, but it does not matter. A stalling Pokemon like this just gives Slowbro plenty of time to use Amnesia. Paralysis, Wo-Chien hates Paralysis way more than Slowbro does, and Slowbro has Rest, so it can get rid of that Paralysis. And with Amnesia, it's always going to be faster because of how its Gen 1 works. And even Hyper Beam itself doesn't even hurt that hard in the first place. So Slowbro has everything it needs to just stall out, wait for turns where Wo-Chien can't move, and then have full special. So, and even the attacking, like, look at that. That did 40 damage, which honestly isn't that bad when you consider Wo-Chien has like 135 special defense, and Slowbro is using a resistant move. So yeah, easy dub for Slowbro. Wo-Chien can try the rest, but it's only really delaying the inevitable. The only thing it might be able to do with enough luck is stall out Slowbro's power points, but even then, Surf has like 24 power points, so I don't think Wo-Chien can do that effectively. And if Slowbro did so bad, now imagine a Pokemon that has a great crit rate and with reliable recovery in Recover. Yeah, obviously Wo-Chien's not doing much here. It's just gonna do terrible. And even without crits, Blizzard still does a lot of damage. And unlike yesterday's video with Primarina, where I was saying, you know, like, Starmie isn't always guaranteed to run Thunderbolt, Blizzard is a very different story. You're basically going to see Blizzard on every single Starmie set, and because of that, yeah, Wo-Chien just always kind of dies. So that sucks, but I don't think anyone was too surprised. Now we have Victreebel, and just like yesterday, Victreebel is gonna have a pretty... okay, not the best time, now that I'm re-looking at this. I guess it depends on what set Victreebel is using, Because Victreebel does have recovery. So if it's not using Sword Stance exactly, and even then, I'm not sure Victreebel with Sword Stance is the best thing in the world. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, you're better off using Razor Leaf, Double Setas, and Wrap. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But either way, like, I don't think it matters too much, because I don't think these two are really going to fight each other. And on the bright side, Wo-Chien is just a good wall for Victreebel, because obviously you're not doing anything with Razor Leaf. Actually, now that I think about it, if you paralyze Victreebel and then Ruination it, that Victreebel is kind of useless. So while Victreebel probably can kill Wo-Chien, I think I was actually wrong with my tier list. I think Victreebel should be put, like, in the great matchups. Because in reality, you're not just gonna have, like, a set here. Like they're not always gonna have a specific set like this, where you're using Sword Stance and Hyper Beam and not Body Slam or Wrap. So, yeah, I think I need to change that when we get to it. We have Zapdos now, and I don't think much explanation is needed here. Even if Wo-Chien went for Stun Spore, Zapdos has Agility. We're not even talking about Thunder Wave. You can just go for Agility to just ignore that speed drop, meaning that Zapdos is kind of destroys, and there's not much Wo-Chien can do. Now, since this is the late December video, we have 3 more Pokemon to go over, and that is the borderline Pokemon. Starting off with Articuno. Yeah. Yeah, that just happened. You know that thing I just said about Zapdos and Agility? Yeah, that works here too. So it's just over. GG, Wo-Chien. You certainly tried your best. Next up, we have Hypno. And thanks to Zach and Theus from yesterday's video, I now have a better idea about how I should be, like, doing this. Without Hypnosis, I think the main attacking move I should be giving Hypno is Seismic Toss. And this is very similar to the situation with Alakazam, except it's way better because you don't have Recover on Hypno. So Wo-Chien can just Paralyze, Ruination, Hyper Beam way more consistently. Speaking of consistency, though, the last Pokemon is Lapras, and yeah, it just consistently destroys Wo-Chien every single time. I don't think this surprises you too much. I don't think I mentioned it yet, but the fact that, like, Ruination is even 100% accurate is just hilarious. Poor little guy. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Yeah, this time I'm switching to Gray. I think Tauros can could go either way, but I think I'm still confident with the rest of these. Honestly, given how abysmal Wo-Chien's move pool is, this isn't that bad. Like, I probably would have expected way worse. But what do you think? Do you think Wo-Chien has a chance in OU? Even if not at a tiered status, do you think it can at least see niche play? If it doesn't, what tier would you put it in? I know it doesn't have any good attacking moves, but I think it probably would still stay in underuse. Not only are the stats just crazy for that tier, not only is Kadabra way more physically frail, meaning that even though it has Thunder Wave and Recover, Wo-Chien can probably beat it more consistently. And even though a lot of water types have Ice Beam in the tier, I also feel like, you know, just having that water resistance is really great. But I think by far the most important one, though, is Dugtrio. Being able to very easily resist Dugtrio is huge. And the fact that you can switch into Dugtrio and just going for Stun Spore, being one of the few things that can actually paralyze Dugtrio, that's a big deal, and you have to respect that. So, I guess my expectations are just, they're just surpassed. So, good job, Wo-Chien. Thank y'all for watching this. This is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you.